Chair, we're now live on YouTube.
Good morning to you.
Morning.
Welcome to this meeting of West Berkshire Licensing Subcommittee. Firstly, can I check for those attending virtually? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Morning. It might be appropriate perhaps to turn your mute yourself at the moment.
Sure.
I'm going to say I'll just hear a couple of background sounds, that's all. Can I also ask if everyone can either switch off to silent or totally switch it to aircraft mode or whatever it might be of your mobile phone, please. Make sure that that doesn't go off. Moving on, I would like to confirm that this application we will be hearing today is for the Boxford, Rood Hill at Boxford itself. I'm Councillor Phil Barnett. I am supported this morning at the subcommittee with Councillor Clive Taylor and Councillor Billy Drummond. I'm also supported by the legal advisor to my right, Thea Nolly, and Ben Ryan to my left, who will deal with the record of proceedings, and Sadie Owen to my rear is also the Zoom host. Please note this morning's meeting is being webcast and recorded. Parties should therefore be mindful of this and bear in mind that in terms of information shared during this particular hearing, I will set out the order in which people will be asked to speak. If and at the appropriate point, anyone wishes to ask questions, please raise their hand. If we need to adjourn the meeting at any point, I will adjourn and all parties will be advised of the revised time and date of the meeting. If we hear the evacuation alarm this morning, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via a safe emergency route. And there's various exit routes identified. And also then follow any instructions given by the trained officers. The assembly point is in the car park outside the Dolphin Public House. I'm going to make a comment about anybody requiring assistance should notify officers. Unfortunately, that could well be me this morning. So Ben, be aware. Does anybody have any questions about the way the meeting is to be conducted? No? Okay, everybody's happy. And presumably, everybody linking remotely have heard me in my introduction. Is that correct? Okay, fair enough. Can I therefore confirm that the applicant, Alex Fasoli, via Zoom, and their agent, David Whitehead, are in attendance, which thanks for the nods. Can I also confirm the objectors attending in person are Annika Hatchwell, is it? And Brian Dawes, is that correct? Welcome. Can I also confirm, yes, that the ward member, Tony Vickers, is attending also. All other objections submitted in writing will be taken in consideration by the panel when they make their determination on the matter. I will now go on to explain how the meeting will be conducted. The council's licensing officer, Philippa Heath, will introduce the application, after which the calling parties will take place in the following order. Representations by the applicant, representations by the objectors, representations by the ward member, and then summing up by the applicant. Remember, each group has 10 minutes in which to make their case, and this should be taken into account the Licensing Act's 4 objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Ryan will be checking on the times to make sure that it is 10 minutes, and before the 10 minutes up, the 1 minute beforehand, he will notify that 1 minute is left of the 10 minutes. Once all representations have been made and all questions asked, we will close the meeting. After this, the members will meet privately to make a decision, and a written decision will be issued to interested parties setting out the verdict as soon as possible, but in any event within 5 working days. Has everybody heard what I've just said? Okay, see the nod. Okay. I would like to take this opportunity again to remind all parties present this is a public meeting and the meeting will be webcast on YouTube. It is therefore necessary to remind all attendees again that they are in a public forum and ask participants to bear this in mind on anything said during the meeting. And again, remotely, you've heard what I've just said. Yeah, nodded. Well done. Thanks. I can then move on to ask declaration of interest. Can I therefore ask members, is there any declarations of interest you wish to declare? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jane Langford, for attending. Appreciate it that you've actually come to the pre-meeting and listened to the preliminary proceedings, and thank you again for taking the trouble coming. It's appreciated. Right. Soon as everybody's ready, I'm going to turn to ask Philippa Heath, the licensing officer, to proceed with the introduction of the application.
Morning, everybody. Morning. Everybody hear me? Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Hello. My name is Philippa Heath. I'm the interim licensing officer with the Public Protection Service. Can I ask whether members have read the report? Good, brilliant. Okay, I'll introduce the application. On the 1st of September 2023, the licensing authority received an application for a new premises license made on behalf of the Boxford Restaurant Limited, made by David Whitehead of the DSW Group, who was acting as their agent on behalf of the business. The application is for a new premises license, which I just said, called the Boxford. The address is Rood Hill, Boxford, RG20 8DD, and was made under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. The application has been recorded on the licensing database under reference number 22490 and was validated on the 1st of September 2023. A copy of the application, including location map and plan, can be seen in your report, and as Appendix 1 and the plan as Appendix 2. The DPS details are noticed on Appendix 3. So I don't know if anyone wants to have a look at it, or you're fine. So the application seeks a premises license to permit the following licensable activities: supply of alcohol, Monday to Sunday, 0700 to midnight, on and off the premises, and late night refreshment, same days from 11 o'clock at night to midnight, indoors only. I can confirm that the application was made in accordance with the Act, and responsible authorities, ward members and parish council were notified of the application by email on the 2nd of September. The application was advertised in accordance with regulations, and the 28-day consultation period ran from the 2nd of September to the 29th of September. The blue notice was on public display at the premises and checked by an officer from Public Protection Partnership. The advert was also placed in Newbury Weekly News in accordance with protocol. During the consultation period, 2 objections from local residents were raised against the application for the new licence. These were received as valid representations made by the objectors, or as known as valid objectors, who believe that by granting the licence in its prescribed form could possibly undermine some of the licensing objectives, namely prevention of public nuisance and crime and disorder. Members can see their representations attached to Appendix 5. There were no concerns made from the 9 responsible authorities, for example, police, trading standards and so on. And as a result, all 9 submitted a no objection response. Now, members may know that the Boxford was previously known as the Bell at Boxford, which has a long history going back to 1881 and is currently licensed under our reference 013790. The pub has been listed as being closed. Perhaps members can check with the agent later on what the status is. I don't know. I think it's going under refurbishment as we speak. Members, please note that this premises is owned by the Boxford Restaurant Limited, who have another pub restaurant amongst their portfolio and is situated on the Lambourne Road, not too far away from the premises. The agent advised the council that they would be surrendering the old licence upon the grant of the new licence. The applicant also offered up many conditions in support of the application, and if these were granted, the licence was granted, these conditions would form part of the operating schedule and be attached to the licence. As relevant reps were made, members must determine the application. The reps were made in relation to the licensing objectives, and members must determine the likely effect of the grant of the premises licence on the promotion of the licensing objectives. The chair has already mentioned what those licensing objectives are, so I don't need to say it again. So members are asked to consider taking the reps, both oral and written, into account and having due regard to the licensing objectives, whether the application for the premises licence should be granted or rejected. The options are available to members are set out on the front page of the report. The members are minded to include any extra conditions other than those offered up by the applicant. They will need to provide the reasons for doing so in the decision notice. Further regard should be added to the statutory guidance under section 182 of the Act and the Council's own statement of licensing policy. And this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Firstly, did all the participants hear that presentation? Yes, okay. I'm just looking and nodding. It's appreciated if you nod. It helps me out. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Then members, questions? Councillor Taylor, Councillor Drummond? No questions? Okay. Right. Questions, the applicant or the objectors? Is there any questions to the presenter at all? No? Okay, thanks very much. Okay. I will therefore then move on and ask the applicant, and presumably you're going to give the presentation remotely, are you, Alex? Okay. And you, okay, apologies, okay. And so I'm going to hand over to you, and you've got 10 minutes, of course.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time today. As you've just heard, these premises were previously the Bell Inn, a 17th century coaching inn, and Boxford Restaurant Limited purchased the property in 2021. Sadly, at that time, much of it had fallen into considerable disrepair. Planning permission was granted in August 2022, which unusually attracted 20 residents writing in support of the planning application. This year, the premises has gone through a very significant refurbishment and redevelopment. The 1980s annex has been completely repurposed with striking new features, and the pitch-covered restaurant building is now thatched. It's a very stunning building, and I'm sure you'll drive past it at some stage. It's also going to deliver full-time employment opportunities for local residents and career progression in the hospitality industry. As you've heard, the owners are the same team as those who own and successfully manage the Woodsbine down the road, 2.5 miles away. You've also heard the premises currently benefit from a premises license, which is still live. It was granted on October the 31st, 2005 under grandfather rights. And as you've heard, a copy is included in your reports pack. Now, our current license benefits from terminal hours that extend to 3:30 in the morning on a Sunday. And for some reason, which I still haven't been able to fathom, till 1:30 on a Tuesday morning. It also permits live music and the sale of alcohol until 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. There are quite a number of non-standard timings attached to the license for special occasions, such as the day after Burns Night until 4 a.m. and New Year's Eve, which effectively allows the premises to open for up to 39 hours without a break. I said that license is still capable of trade, but for clarity, we will surrender that license if this application is granted. When you look at the old license, you'll see that the conditions on that license haven't been drafted in any way that makes them enforceable. And that's something we frequently find, I'm sure you've seen it before, where license converted in 2005 under the transitional arrangements for Schedule 8. So our application is significantly different. It's a restaurant, not a pub. It doesn't even sell draft beer. There are no letting rooms, no regulated entertainment. So any noise nuisance or light nuisance associated with those elements has gone in an instant. You'll see on our application, we proposed a very comprehensive list of very robust, enforceable and appropriate conditions. And these, as you heard, will be attached to the license if granted. Erica Myers from Environmental Health asked us to reword 2 of the conditions we proposed, and we added 2 more. We were happy to do that for her. The Boxwood itself is a 56 cover, family inclusive restaurant. It'll be serving breakfast, lunches, evening meals, and intimate dinners. In short, relaxed all-day dining in an elegant and easygoing atmosphere. As such, the terminal hours requested for both licensed activities are midnight each day. So to be clear, on our new license, we could not be open till 3:30 a.m. on a Sunday, and we could not be playing live music till 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. It would be disingenuous of me not to put my hands up straight away and say the terminal hour for licensable activities on the Sunday are an hour later on our new application than on the current license. So we're looking at midnight for the last sale of alcohol, whereas the current one only permits 11 o'clock. That's only on the Sunday. So then let's look at how these compare to other licenses you yourselves are granted. You as a licensing authority, obviously, not you sitting here. So we'll start with the closest. And the reason I'm choosing these pubs as a comparative is because they were the establishments that Mr. Barker in his objection brought up. So it's a good way to come with which way we should look at things. So the closest is the Woodsbean. Terminal hours there are 2 o'clock for the sale of alcohol and 2:30 closing. The Halfway Inn, which sadly ceased trading on the 4th of October this year, their terminal hours for the sale of alcohol were 1:30, closing at 2 o'clock in the morning. The Red House and the Hare and Hounds all have terminal hours for the sale of alcohol till midnight, with only the 5 Bells closing earlier. So you can see the hours sought are modest in comparison to some and fully comparable to other licenses you granted in similar or even more residentially intensive areas. Now, the Boxwood won't admit diners after 10 p.m. at night. And that's quite simply because the average time taken to eat a full relaxed dinner in a restaurant of this style is 2 hours. And because the owners have been operating the Woodsbean for many years, that's what the gauge is that they're working to. Now, experience at the Woodsbean has shown there is an appetite for tables be booked as late as that, no pun intended, but not every day. But it is frequent enough, particularly if the restaurant is fully booked at earlier times. It is, after all, a destination restaurant, and it would be particularly useful, we think, for that facility for special occasions, the Valentine's Days and things like that, when more people want to come and eat. And also for the 10 o'clock reason is to turn the tables around from earlier lunches and dinners, earlier dinners. Now, personally, I know I spent more than 2 hours when I've been out with friends for dinners, and lunches, maybe just an hour. I'm sure your experience is very similar. So given that 2-hour base time, if the restaurant takes the last booking for 10 o'clock, we need that terminal hour of midnight for the sale of alcohol for them to finish their dinner and then wind down with a cup of coffee and settle their bill. The extra bit of slip time for the next 20 minutes or so gives time for late arrivals. Again, I'm sure we've all booked restaurant tables and we had to call up on the way to say, I'm sorry, I've been delayed by 10 minutes. So that is why we have that extra slip time as well. Quite happy to give you a breakdown of the hours of those 2 hours if you wish, but I haven't got time to do that in my 10 minutes. But if you ask me afterwards, I'll give it to you. You'll also see in our application that we seek to open at 7 a.m. for breakfast. That is not a licensable activity. We can do that anytime with or without a premises license. However, it does become licensable because we would like to offer some classic accompaniments such as champagne, Bloody Mary, Bucks Fizz or Bellinis. So from 7 a.m. until 11 a.m, alcohol can only be supplied with substantial food. So for example, eggs royale, not a slice of toast. Now, this is not only an offer to residents of Boxford and local villages, but also a place where business people can meet and a great place for social breakfast and special occasions. And we really hope it will become the social hub of the village. Again, the concept of offering breakfast is wholly consistent with other premises such as the Woodspeen and Hare and Hounds. Now, like many other restaurants, if our customers have left by 10:30 in the evening, then the restaurant will close. There is absolutely no point in a team of chefs and waiting staff hanging around with nothing to do. I mean, that would just be financial suicide. Now, I see applications from both sides because apart from representing applicants throughout the UK, I also represent residents, residential associations.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Ben. And businesses to oppose representations, applications or instigate reviews. There are no objections from any of the 10 responsible authorities. That in itself is very informative as they are de facto the professional objectors. And I say that with all respect because they are very much the public's protectors within their own remit. I'm going to have to skip through a bit now. The main thrust of the objections is the hours, and I've already explained the necessity of the hours and the comparison to the current license. So I don't need to address that again. There are also representations about the issue of drink driving, etc. And again, that's nothing to do with the Boxford as it wasn't open at the time. And in any respect, we know from the guidance.
Can you sum up, please? You've got 10
Sure.
seconds.
10 seconds from the Home Office that we are not responsible for customers' behaviour when they leave the premises. So that, councillors, is a very significant safety net. A review can be issued or requested if there are any issues at the premises. And that's me done at the moment. Thank you, councillor.
Thank you very much. Just before I open it up for questions, can I just ask your colleague remotely? You heard that presentation, your colleague, did you, Alex? Okay, thank you very much. Right, now, members' questions. I think if I can open it up for myself, David, just to reiterate one of the earlier parts you were saying, you made it quite clear in relationship to the earlier application on the special conditions, on the special events for the extended hours, that will be totally rescinded. Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
The license we surrendered, so it won't exist anymore. So the only hours we'll be able to work to.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you use the microphone, please?
Beg your pardon. Sorry, I've got such a loud voice, my wife tells me. So the only hours we can work to will be those till the terminal hour for the sale of alcohol and late night refreshment until midnight. None of the other hours that we're currently allowed to do. They'll all be removed.
Thank you very much. You made that clear. Right, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Drummond. Councillor Drummond first, then. Okay.
Yeah, I see on your application you've got 4 CCTV cameras situated around the building. Are any of them round to the back of the lines? Or the property, the nearest property on the map, the line?
All the cameras only go up to the border of the property itself, and onto the entrances. So, as is normal requirement of Thames Valley Police, the cameras are on the main doors and all entrances, capable of full frontal identification of anyone in any light situations, so day, night, etc., infrared power, and also into the car park, but none into any neighbouring properties.
So if there was any noise at night, they wouldn't pick it up?
Cameras wouldn't pick up noise anyway, sir.
Well, no, thank you.
Yes, yeah, a couple of questions. Could you clarify whether there's any outdoor seating areas? I know there's a terrace area.
There is a terrace. There is a small part of green, if you can look down on that front. So there is a small area of green out here by the terrace.
Yeah.
There may be tables and chairs there, but it's not very wide. And on the boundary going up to the corner, they used to have tables and chairs, but that's not owned by the Boxford. So that would be a matter for possibly a tables and chairs license were it to be granted.
Okay. Would people be dining on those outside areas?
It's possible, yes. Yeah, it's possible. Probably not in the evenings, but certainly lunches, and definitely not at this time of year.
Okay. Also, I'm not overly familiar with the position of the pub, but I mean, would virtually all the customers be coming by car to the premises?
There's quite a lot of houses around at the back of the premises, so a lot of people will walk. We also hope people will walk from other villages as a destination. But apart from that, most other people will come by car or bike.
And how many cars can you accommodate in your car park?
I would have to count, look at the plan and count, if you give me a minute.
Roughly.
I think it's on the planning permission. I think it was, Alex might nod if I get this right, 25, 30? Yeah, 30 odd car parking spaces. It will be on the planning permission, and it will be probably on the picture of the application. 1 second. It looks like 28 car parking spaces and 2 electric charge points.
Okay. And is that generally adequate to?
Yes, it is. It's similar to what you'd usually use. Most cars will come with 2 people in. Maximum covers is 56, and you won't have 56 people all eating at the same time. Very rarely.
Okay. I mean, one final question. You referred to the fact that these premises were open at an earlier date. Do you have any recollection of issues with nuisance with the previous premises?
From talking to Environmental Health, we weren't made aware of any previous issues with the pub. However, with different owners and it not being a pub now, it being a restaurant, it would be very difficult to tie the 2 issues in. And clearly, the new owners can't be responsible for any behaviour of previous owners, which could be why it ended up in such a state of disrepair and closed.
Okay, right. Thank you very much for those questions. Thank you for the answers. I see Alex was nodding at most of those questions, so I presume he heard the questions and obviously the answers. Okay. Moving on, I'm going to ask, obviously, the objectors if you've got any questions to ask of the applicant, and then I'll ask Philippa Heath, same as well. Over to you.
I don't have any questions so far, but one or two things I want to say. So do I say it now or later?
I think it'd be appropriate in your presentation if you, because when you say mention, it's questions to the applicant and not actually comments.
Okay, so do I make my presentation later?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
we haven't got that far yet,
Okay,
actually.
fine.
Okay, so I was just
Yeah.
wondering when you were saying comments, I'm wondering what you were referring to. Sorry. Okay.
Well, I suppose
You've got the opportunity to ask a question now, if you so wish.
just one question, and it could just be my ignorance, but a lot of this is based on the fact that there's an existing license. As I understand it, the previous business went bankrupt, and I don't know the legalities of it, but I understood that actually the license is no longer existing if the previous business goes bankrupt. But maybe we can get some advice on that.
I'm going to turn to the legal advisor here. It's not.
The license is still.
Yeah, okay. Philippa, I don't know whether it's in your domain at all. Yeah.
What was the question?
I can answer.
Does a license remain live if the business goes bankrupt?
We won't, our records show that the license still is live. So if they went insolvency, I'm not sure whether the council was aware of it, but yes, there are rules where the applicant has to let the council know within a certain period of time, gives him a chance to transfer that license to somebody else. Because yes,
It's 28 days. So if a license goes into liquidation, then it can be reinstated within 28 days by transfer to a third party, or by running with the insolvency practitioner. The insolvency practitioners don't generally like doing it because it puts too much of a burden on them. So it's usual to transfer it out to someone else. The license was transferred to the Boxwood when it closed, or after it closed.
Sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say, because the owners and the business was gone for a long time before this redevelopment started. So it's just a
We
question.
can only go with the council records at this moment in time. We've just got a record that the council is live. So, perhaps they were notified to us. I'm not sure.
I mean, I think that, we will come on to comments later, but I think that the existence or otherwise of license transferred from the previous operation is absolutely pertinent to the nature of this discussion, because if there is it seems to me anyway, because if the existing license is to be held as a fallback in a way, perhaps as an existing planning consent would be, then that changes the character of the nature of the discussion within this room in its entirety. So I think in broad terms, I think it's a very critical point. It won't change the comments and the nature of the comments that we have. And another question for clarification that I would have is, in the event that there is a license which is existent and there are complaints subsequently, so let us say, for sake of argument, that you were to continue with the existing license, let's leave aside your one, and to be having live music till 3 o'clock in the morning, and the residents are complaining about this, there is, one assumes, a mechanism for the authority to then rescind the existing license because of objections which are raised. And I don't know whether that's correct or not.
You're absolutely correct. Sorry.
No, sorry.
Zora, you carry on, because technically, and I mean, I was actually drifting off the position of the format. And when you raised the point, which I thought was more of a legal issue, and that's why I drew the legal officer in, basically, of course, the questions were technically to you directly. So I'm going to ask you to answer this particular point.
Thanks, Chairman. Out of courtesy, I should wait till you've asked me to respond. So anyway, I will respond to that. The license does exist at the moment. It was correctly transferred over to Boxwood Restaurants Limited and is capable of being traded. That license will be surrendered. In other words, in other words, cancelled, thrown in the bin, won't exist if this application is granted. If there are complaints at any time, the mechanism is you can speak to the pub. If you're not happy with speaking to the pub, you can call me. You have my contact details, and I will quite happily take it up with the directors of WSH Restaurants and the Boxford, because I do a lot of work for the whole teams. Failing that, you contact the council and you ask for a review of the licence. Now, anyone can call a premises licence in for a review at any time. And you detail what the issues are, that will be investigated, and then the licence is coming back to a hearing similar to this, where the issues are put to the premises licence holder, and hopefully there's a resolution, which might mean changes to hours, might be additional conditions, it might be the licence is revoked. That's a matter for the licensing committee to discuss. Thank you.
Does that answer or partially answer your points at this moment in time?
It does. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Right, over to you, Philippa. Have you got any questions that you need to
Just one.
ask at all?
You've applied for what we got here, sale of alcohol till midnight. Well, can I just did you offer up like a winding down period of time?
The last sale of alcohol will be midnight. That allows for liqueurs, and that's only if we've got people in the restaurant. As I say, we could be closed by then, but people must be out by past. That gives time to people time to finish their coffee, settle the bill, and get out. So
Okay.
you have got half an hour there.
Yeah, because the application showed what was the closing time?
12:30.
Oh, right. Okay, that's all right. That's fine. That's it. Just, yeah.
Thank you very much. No other questions. I'll just doubly check. Alex, you heard all the questions, you heard all the answers? Nodding, yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And thank you, David, for the presentation. I'm now going to, sorry, is that a point of?
No, I was wondering if I have the right to question the applicant as well. That's all. I've not been in one of these before.
I'm technically Councillor Vickers, it's not on the actual agenda, but having said that, you will get the chance to actually make some points later on, which might be relevant to this particular point that you wanted to raise at this time. You've got your presentation, I'm sure you're prepared for that, and you obviously know from past experience in the planning side how things work. So
I know planning, I know nothing about licensing.
well, you'll be surprised how I'm picking up things very much related to planning on this, Councillor Vickers. Okay, I can then move over to Annika and Brian, and you've now got your 10 minutes to give your presentation.
Okay, sure, I won't need 10 minutes, but first of all, to say that well, I and most people in the village are very much in support of this pub, and we wanted to go ahead, which is why there are so many letters of support, and we hope it's successful. So it's not to cause any difficulty, but the problem with the 12 o'clock last sale of alcohol is that obviously if you sell some alcohol to someone, you can't turf them out. Even if you have a 12:30 closing, I doubt that you would turf them out if they were still drinking. So potentially, as it stands, you could have a party of people having alcohol at 12 o'clock, staying till 1 o'clock, all turfing out at the same time, chatting, laughing, slamming doors, driving off, right on the boundaries with residential properties, many of which have children. And I know that in COVID times, we had a band, and sometimes we had to practice in the evening, and 10 o'clock we would get complaints, people saying their children are trying to sleep. So we only did it once. Yeah, so that's the problem. So if the idea is to close around 12, then why can't we're only talking about an hour. I would like it to be 11 o'clock for the last sale of alcohol, in order for the wind down, the paying bills, and everything else to happen by 12, which I think is, quite late enough and reasonable time, so close to houses. The other thing is I feel it could materially affect the value of our property because if and when we come to sell, the person looking at our house, seeing that there's a pub next door, the first thing they would look at, I would say, is probably the licensing hours and will probably think the same thing as me. So they won't have been to this discussion and spoken with the owners. They will just look at it on paper, say, oh, you can still sell alcohol at 12. It'll be noisy at 1 probably. And that could very well affect the value of our property and others nearby. So yes, so we're only talking about an hour's difference, which from what the applicant has said, shouldn't really make any difference to their business, really, and the success of the business. So we'd like the licensing of alcohol to end at 11 o'clock. Maybe New Year's Eve could be a different issue, and maybe 1 or 2 other occasions, possibly by agreement with neighbours. I don't know how it works. So that's it, really. The only other comment was the question of I think we do have to be sure in this discussion that the previous license is actually still live technically and legally, because as Brian said, it does it is rather sort of laying the basis for the whole discussion here. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, have you continued on? You've still got several minutes.
Okay, if I could just kind of add a couple of kind of background points related to the licenses for other properties or premises around, and the process of objecting to the license, as I understand it, and obviously I could be corrected, is that if no objections are raised, then a license is effectively rubber stamped by the authority. I can only assume that may very well have been the case in the case of other properties. The applicant would make an application for a very long license and it just gets rubber stamped because nobody objects, because the process of objecting actually is quite obtuse. The amount of time which the pub is open for, we've never had a problem with the Bell pub previously. We, for clarification, live next door. We have a boundary of about 30 to 40 metres along the side of the car park of the pub. So ourselves and the other neighbours, or in particular ourselves, are very affected by this. We never had a problem with the Bell previously. They never invoked the kind of times that were being talked about. Had they have done so, without question, we would have raised an objection, and without question, with any license that's granted here, if we find ourselves unable basically to get a straight 8 hours sleep a night, because of disruption from the pub next door, we would make a point. And I think that that's a not unreasonable request for residential neighbours, to be able to at least have a break of 8 hours. And at the moment, we would get nowhere near that if the licence was actually to be used. And on the applicant's comments, which they had made in writing previously, they did mention, I don't remember the exact words, but basically it's unlikely that the licensing times would actually be used on a day-to-day basis. And if that's the case, then there's no reason to have a license for them. So, but we don't object to the pub. We think it's great. It looks fantastic. We're really looking forward to it. We just think it should be a reasonable license in a rural location with neighbours directly close by. And some other places that you mentioned in your report don't have neighbours directly next door. The Woodspeen doesn't, the Five Bells doesn't, the Red House doesn't. So to say that they have got a lot of residents around them is actually not entirely correct in the same way as with the Boxwood. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay. Alex, did you hear the presentation clearly? Okay, thank you very much. Now over to members' question of the objectors.
No, I haven't getting the answer to the question I was going to ask, but they've already answered it. Thank you.
Any questions, Councillor Taylor? Looking to the objectors.
I think I can probably answer some of the queries which might assist everyone. As far as managing the guests go, It's not going to be a situation where
You remember, it's not giving points forward at this particular time. It's actually specifically asking the objectors on any particular issues, and it's definitely relevant to obviously the presentation.
Okay, perhaps what I would say then is, did it affect the value of your property, to your knowledge, when you purchased it, when the solicitors told you the license did it actually extend till 2 o'clock in the morning? And as you said, you've had no difficulty with the pub, and I'm guessing no, there's nothing else I can really say about that. So without taking points forward.
Okay, thank you. Philippa, any questions at all? No, okay. I'll ask a question. Answer the question. Yeah. Okay. If you aren't gone, answer the point. Sorry, it's you'd be surprised actually sitting in this position.
I know.
It's not easy with that the vent. And in fact, it's been mentioned by several other people. It's not clear. You get this drafting effect and the noise background. So
the questions. The question was, were we affected by the previous pub? No, but it had very little business. It was not popular. The owners were not generally popular, certainly not in the village. We know that this pub would be very popular. So that's the main reason. Did it affect the value? Well, it's very difficult to say that because it's obviously a negotiation, but certainly it was a big factor in our decision to move there. Definitely was how quiet the pub was. As it turned out, it was because of those reasons, but it certainly would have had an effect. We wouldn't have bought it if we'd heard it was busy and popular until 1 a.m.
okay, thank you for that point. Then before I move on, again, I've just got to reiterate the point. Alex, did you hear the last presentation clearly? You heard the questions and the answers as well. You're nodding. Okay, Karen. Moving forward, and it's now your turn, Councillor Tony, to give your 10-minute presentation. And I suggest that comments that you were thinking about making before, probably you can incorporate in your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Phil. Yes, as I said, I'm new to licensing. I've had 20 years on planning, and I'm here because having read the objectors, the residents' complaints, I thought they were valid and deserved to be supported. I must say, although I'm a great supporter of what is happening at Boxford with this enterprise, I'm uncomfortable with what appears to be, but I'm sure isn't really, a sort of implied threat that if you don't give us this license with these terms, we will carry on using the other license which we have acquired. Because, as we've heard, the license that was somehow given to the previous owner was not really used. And I would certainly hope that the new owner would not. So, and I'm not sure whether you as a committee are allowed to vary the hours without a whole new process starting and evidence presented that the license that is intended to be awarded by you today is actually causing public nuisance or contrary to public safety or the other, conditions, the reasons that licenses are awarded. So I have visited the Speen at the end of a long walk. I was a visitor on foot. I was somewhat shocked at the price, but I would go back there if it was a special occasion. It is indeed a destination restaurant, and I'm sure it is very popular with business people from nearby Newbury. Now, I live in Newbury, and I'm actually living closer to the Boxford than my fellow ward members who live in Hungerford. But Boxford is a village that deserves to have a decent pub. I was also slightly uncomfortable to hear that the owners see this as what would appear to be another destination restaurant, but not so much as a pub. Now, when I was campaigning earlier in the year in Boxford, I knocked on the doors of the social housing just across the road, and I found there was not support amongst those sorts of people who live in the village. And I would be very sad if they didn't feel welcome at the Boxford to just go round for, a pint of beer occasionally. So I do hope that the pub decides to be not just a destination restaurant, but also a pub. And I do agree that although I've heard the style of business that is intended to occur, and I'm sure it will be well supervised and well managed, I do feel that it is unreasonable to serve alcohol after 11. Now, I've got to know this ward pretty well. I've lived in the area 30 years. It's a lovely part of the district. It's having a lot of its pubs closed, so people will travel to have a drink later than, say, at the Five Bells. The sort of people that will come here, I don't think are the people who live along the A4, because all the little lanes that connect the A4 with the B4000 and then come down into the Lambourne Valley are a bit tricky. But it's a very good road down from the B4000 to the Boxford, which is right at the crossroads when you get into the village. So I think people from the Five Bells and coming up from Stockcross, where their pubs have sadly closed, are quite likely to come to this pub if they're feeling like another drink when those pubs close. So I do fear that a license which allows sale of alcohol specifically, and I don't worry about the other things that are going to carry on through till 12 o'clock. It's the sale of alcohol, purely the sale of alcohol after 11 o'clock on 365 days of the year is, as Mrs. Hatchwell said in her letter, unreasonable. And I'm always, whether it's planning or licensing, thinking of the one or two people who are harmed by something that is planned, even if a whole community, which won't be affected by car doors slamming after 11 o'clock, 365 days of the year. So I would hope that you, Chairman, and members will consider carefully whether the hours of sale of alcohol up to 12 o'clock are a reasonable thing to include in this condition. And I would hope that if you do decide to vary the condition, that the owners will still surrender the license, which allows for the much longer hours, which would be, I'm sure, unreasonable. So really, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll say, Councillor Tony Vickers. I've been a little bit informal with other participants because obviously on my brief, Christian names have been mentioned, but I'm like you, I try and keep formality to a certain extent. I just ask Alex remotely, did you hear that presentation clearly? Okay, I'm going to probably answer one of your points that you first made in your presentation in a terminology which is quite close to your heart in planning. We will weigh up all the evidence put in front of us today and make the appropriate recommendations. So I hope that answers the first point you made. Okay, questions of my fellow councillors? No questions? No questions? Okay. Questions from the other participants? Philippa at all? No? Okay. Yourself?
I'll sum up with you when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Say thank you very much. Sorry, I keep switching it on and off at the wrong time. Obviously, I'd now like to invite the applicant if they wish to address any comments made at the subcommittee on the presentations that have been had so far.
Thank you, Chairman. So very briefly then, the councillor quite rightly says, I'm sure for the village, it needs a pub. but need is not a licensing matter. It's a planning matter, as you well know, sir. It's no criticism. And although it was a pub, a restaurant that people will come to as a destination pub, it's not going to prevent people from the local village going in to have a drink, etc., because it has got the bar cafe area at the entrance, as you'll see on the plans that have been submitted. So it is inclusive. It's not just pushing people out. There is no draft beer, so people won't pop in for a pint, but there is craft beers and there's wines, etc. The owners have many years track record with you at the Woodspean, and I'd say that this is a modest application befitting a restaurant which has been carefully and considerately drafted, and the planning that's gone into the building itself is very environmentally friendly and considerate for the environment and the local residents. The proposed conditions on our licence are comprehensive, robust and enforceable, capable of being enforced, as I say, very important, and they're appropriate to the nature and style of these premises. And all conditions, as you well know, but I just say it for completeness, all conditions must be tailored to the style of the premises. Councillor, in our opinion, it would be not only unfair but unjust to refuse this application, reduce the terminal hours for licensable activities, particularly as they are less than currently permitted, and they are also very similar or less than others properties of a similar nature that you've granted in the area. So I submit really, sir, that nothing else I can say except I think you can comfortably grant this application in the terms applied for, in the knowledge that it will be run properly, that there's that massive safety net of a review, and with the history of these applicants and the way they run premises in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that summing up. Can I now ask that the remote Alex remotely, have you heard the last part of that summing up? Okay.
Yes.
Very much. Well, can I then formally thank everyone for their contribution up to this particular point? Members will now retire, and sorry, I thought you said so. Apologies, sorry. And therefore, obviously, we would take note of the oral presentations as well as the written presentations that have been set out today. Obviously, a written decision notice will be issued, as I'd said earlier, to the appropriate parties. But in any event, it will be endeavoured to actually get it out within 5 working days. Okay, so thank you very much for coming along. Appreciated all your contributions today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.